Welcome back to a walk through the tarot. The Fool has arrived at card 21, the World, an archetype of completion and wholeness. His journey is almost complete. In the previous video, the Fool encountered judgment. He realised how far he'd travelled and wasn't sure what else there was to learn, but now, yet again, he's facing the unfamiliar and strange. It's time to explore the final card in the tarot's major arcana. We're going to look at its background, examine the symbols and see what messages it contains as the Fool nears the end of his journey. Early tarot showed localised versions of the world, like the Visconti Sforza, with its city contained in a circle supported by two winged cherubs. Cariel Visconti has a golden-haired woman holding an orb and sceptre above another city, while the woman in the Charles VI tarot tops what looks more like a Tuscan landscape. This was a popular image for the card, and in the late 15th century it was also replicated in mass-produced decks like the Budapest, Rosenwald and Rothschild tarots. The cards seem to represent either or both material or spiritual power over places that appeared closely related to Italian hilltop towns. As the tarot moved across Europe and arrived in France in the 17th century, the world card began to change. A figure appeared within a wreath shaped like a mandorla and known in Latin as Vesica Pisces, meaning bladder fish. The sign of a fish was adopted by early Christians, and in sacred art, Jesus was often shown inside this shape, sometimes with disciples in each corner. In the French world cards, gender was often ambiguous. The Marseillaise-style images seem to show both men and women, but the genitals are always hidden, suggesting the possibility of both male and female attributes. A wand is held in each hand, and many decks had the four corner figures seen on the Wheel of Fortune, which are often called the living creatures of Ezekiel. These may be a symbol for the elements, the fixed signs of the zodiac, or cardinal directions, or could be direct reference to the biblical story of Ezekiel, where they represented God's sovereignty over every different type of creation. French occultist Antoine Court de Gebelin tried to move away from Christian references. He claimed the figure within the wreath was an allegory for worldly creation and control by ancient Egyptian gods and priests, as well as being the power behind divination and the source of all esoteric knowledge. For Eliphas Levi, a century later, the card was the unity of material and non-material worlds, as well as a symbol for total spiritual fulfillment. For Levi, the world card was the culmination of a journey to the self, or completion of a process of esoteric initiation. Oswald Wirth coloured the wands red and blue, relating them to fire or energy and breath or air, both needing the other to survive. Like Levi, he related it to spiritual achievement and harmony. It was Wirth who introduced the world as the source of the creative energy manipulated by the magician. The journey to the self was now complete. Outer and inner combined, and the world indicated the beginning of a new phase of life. The Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith tarot card retained a similar design, and Waite's interpretation contained little of significant difference to previous versions. For Waite, the world personified infinity combined with eternal creative energy, that which fuels the cosmos. And wherever she appeared, it was a sign of victory, achievement, and successful conclusions. So, let's take a closer look at the symbols on this card. The Fool has been accustomed to strangeness. The sight of a woman seemingly suspended in air like the moon or stars raises his curiosity. He wants to know more. He can see, but not touch. And, although he's able to walk around her, she always appears to face him. The scarf is purple, which was an expensive natural colour, first collected from sea snails by the Phoenicians many thousands of years ago. Purple was reserved for royalty and other social elites, while esoterically it's associated with divinity, so symbolises spiritual wisdom and shows the world's direct access to sacred energy. The figure holds two wands, which suggest double the power. The magician held up a single wand, making himself a conduit for the creative energy of the universe. He showed the fool he too could develop the power to control opposing forces, and in the World card the wand symbolised balance between the conscious and unconscious, the spirit and the physical, as well as internal and external sources of creativity and action. And she balances these powers in a demonstration of total integration. The magician opened the journey and the world is closing it. The oval wreath appears to be made of laurel, a sacred plant traditionally associated with Apollo and victory. Laurel was used to make living crowns. In ancient Greece, these were awarded to athletes and artists, while in ancient Rome, laurel was used to crown emperors or military leaders to celebrate their triumphs. At the top and bottom, the wreath is tied with red ribbon in the shape of the infinity symbol. On the magician and strength cards, these were black, but here they're the colour of passion and action, representing the eternal creative energy of the universe. Being above her head and below her feet, the symbols also echo the magician's stance, which stood for the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. The circle or oval represents wholeness and infinity. The shape is reminiscent of the mythological cosmic egg from which the universe was said to have emerged. This sacred geometry shape is formed by the intersection of two circles. Spiritual and material overlap, symbolising duality and creation, as well as being the womb of the universe. In the corners of the cards are the eagle, bull, angel and lion, the four creatures which appeared on card 10, the Wheel of Fortune. There they were all reading, but now there are no books because their knowledge has been made manifest. The quest has been fulfilled and there's no longer any need for texts. When the fool set out on his journey 21 cards ago, he was very different to the person he has become. At first everything was almost too strange to accept, but gradually the lessons started to fall into place. He began to feel renewed, and as his older and fixed ways of thinking dissolved, his inner layers were revealed. He examined himself, came to terms with the events of his life, saw connections where previously he thought there were none, and now the World card is an accumulation of all that has gone before. It signifies completion, but the card is both an ending and the beginning of what lies ahead. And our fool wants to leap into the unknown, but feels reluctant to leave the cards behind. He does have a choice. He could go back to the beginning and start again, re-meet the archetypes with his new levels of knowledge and understanding, knowing there will always be more to learn. And this is a reason why the fool is numbered 0. It can appear at the start, at the end, or anywhere within the numerical order. He looks again at the world. She seems to be both standing still and dancing. And he smiles at how the concept of duality has become so easy to understand when once it had been so hard. To dance is to move without any specific destination, and being active can help us feel more alive. Energy flows and brings a sense of connection to the universe. But without higher knowledge, this connection cannot always be fully understood. The fool is changed, and now he realises this final card is less about messages or lessons and more about the assimilation of everything that is learned. He's been introduced to the archetypes, examined himself, understood the principles of cause and effect. Where attention goes, energy flows. You are what you do, and, always, as above, so below. It's time to return to his former life, which will be another test all of its own. And, as well as the archetypes of the major arcana, there'll always be the other 56 cards in the minor arcana. But they'll wait, as all the cards wait, until the next person is ready to begin their own walk through the tarot.